Hello and welcome to this Red Gaming Tech video. Myself and Marta, where as always I'm here with the latest from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. So what I have for you today, my friends, well, I actually have a surprising amount under my arm as a lovely early Christmas present for you. And we're going to kick things off today with some benchmarks for the RTX Titan. So in case you weren't aware, this particular card is now available for purchase, and of course people who have done so are very eager to show what this rather expensive RTX card is actually capable of. Now what we have here is a Twitter user by the name of Death. Yes, actually Death, and of course there's going to be a link to their tweet in the description below this video. And basically we have them overclocking this and also putting it in a water cooling setup. So we have an overclock to 2070 MHz on the GPU and 2025 on the memory. And what score did we see in FireStrike, I hear you ask? Well, we see a score here of, or a graphics score should I say, of 41,109. In terms of the total score, we see 31,862, but of course what we're focused on here is of course the graphics card, which again scored over 40,000. And just to refresh your memory, this particular card is, well, rather pricey, as I've already said, and is currently $2,499 US. So, at least in this particular usage case, that is the performance that you can expect. But that's not the only thing I have for you today, of course, not at all, as we have something rather interesting regarding Steam and crossplay. Now, I just want to say, before I actually get into the meat of this particular topic, that this is all pure speculation, of course, but what we do see is some beta files added to the Steam Beta GitHub repository, and these were uncovered and then posted on Resetera. Now, unsurprisingly, it's a rather large update, as they tend to be, but what we're going to be turning our attention to here today is a particular line of code which seems to imply that Valve and Microsoft are working to basically get their two platforms to play nice with each other. Now, this particular string, I suppose, rather than code is more the proper term, it allows the system to read your Steam ID, and we also see directly below that it's another optional string which reads Xbox_pairwise_ID. So again, this is far from confirmed, but it does seem to at least suggest that they are working on getting a deeper standardized integration between the two systems. Now, of course, we have seen some crossplay with some games, like, for example, Killer Instinct is probably the most prime example, the most popular example, but this seems to, again, suggest that they're working on getting this sort of more across the board, even if not for every game ever, because obviously with certain games you'd come into issues of, keyboard and mouse versus controller and that sort of thing, so that's probably still going to be a thing, but it does seem, at least, that they're thinking of expanding their partnership in this regard. Now, of course, there's been no official mention from either Valve or Microsoft, so this is far from an official confirm. I just want to make that absolutely 100% clear, but it does seem to be pointing that way, doesn't it? And we actually have something else from Xbox, as Phil Spencer has talked about Project xCloud. Now, of course, this is something we've been talking about a fair bit lately, as of course it was recently revealed by Microsoft, and of course it's come up as we've been discussing what's potentially going to be happening with the next generation Xbox, with all these rumours that one of them is going to be a streaming console, and obviously that is potentially going to be using the Project xCloud, which would make perfect sense, because xCloud basically allows you to play games on more devices, and just basically just opens up games to way more people, essentially. Now, we actually have some few comments from Phil Spencer himself when talking in an interview with gamesindustry.biz, and of course there is going to be a link to the full article in the description below this video. If you wish to go give it a read, I would highly recommend you do so. But what did he actually have to say? He said, quotes, "The future of gaming is the ability to play the games you want with the people you want, whenever you want, wherever you are, and on any device. Project xCloud is about providing more access and choice to gamers. For mobile-only players, it creates access to more immersive games they haven't had access to before. For console and PC players, it creates new choice in when and where they can play. And for developers, it means the opportunity to create one game that has the potential to scale to billions of players. We're building a set of tools and technologies that we can believe can empower the entire industry." Now, as I have discussed numerous times, and as many people have discussed numerous times, one of the biggest, if not the biggest hurdle to this sort of thing being actually successful, because of course this has been attempted before, is bandwidth, slow internet, and of course the inherent latency and lag that comes along with it. But if it can get it working for single player games at least, that obviously would be good, but the second you bring multiplayer into the equation, you're probably going to have a few issues. To be honest, that's probably not going to be going away, because it is just going to be something that Microsoft, for all this xCloud and all the tech behind it, they can't do anything about, someone being in an area of bad internet or whatever. So there are just going to be some games where it just doesn't work, but even just nailing it for single player would be really strong, because we have yet to really see that. Obviously, it's been attempted multiple times, and there is always that little bit of just input lag, latency, and of course, again, with fighting games and other sort of response-sensitive games, that can really be critical. But I'm not going to lie, this future that he talks about of being able to play the games that you want with the people you want whenever you want and so on, that sounds pretty damn interesting, and the cloud is definitely one way potentially this could happen, and just tie very nicely, I think, at least into the crossplay thing that we just discussed. But let's move on, shall we, to something that's a touch less positive, shall we say. Now, unfortunately, what we have here is some rather concerning security vulnerabilities thanks to, it's going to sound weird, RGB lighting, and more specifically, RGB motherboards. Now, according to an independent security firm by the name of SecureAuth, various fairly big names in this area, that being ASUS and Gigabyte, have 7 vulnerabilities in software packages, including the AuraSync RGB controller. Now, according to the report from SecureAuth, both ASUS and Gigabyte were notified of these vulnerabilities back in April of this year. And these are various vulnerabilities to GLK-IO and ASUS Geo drivers. And this causes the AuraSync package to be vulnerable to security attacks. And once again, Gigabyte were also made aware as well, that they have denied there is any such vulnerability for the RGB software in not only its motherboards, but obviously the various other accessories that they do as well. So, now, according to the reports, they have shown proof of concept as to how these vulnerabilities could actually be taken advantage of by an attacker. Just for example, the flaw in ASUS's system could allow you to run code with elevated privileges on a system, whereas the flaws in Gigabyte software could potentially lead to a local attacker taking complete control of an affected system. Now, I just want to clarify something a little bit here, because again, ASUS and Gigabyte were both informed, and ASUS apparently did fix one of the vulnerabilities that SecureAuth informed them about, but the other ones, at least again according to this report, have been left unfixed. Now, apparently there were even other flaws, or similar flaws should I say, found in the software of ASRock, but they actually gave an update fairly swiftly and did resolve these issues. Now, there is going to be a link in the description below this video to SecureAuth's full report. I highly suggest you give it a read, because there is a ton of information, including code and a bunch of other stuff that, of course, I've just kind of skimmed over. But obviously, I've given you the important parts. They've also given a timeline of when they reported things and what responses, if any, that they received from various companies. So if you're at all skeptical about any of this, do give that link a look-see, because I'm sure you'll find all the answers to your questions there. Now, if these vulnerabilities are what they say they are and how bad they say they are, then Gigabyte and ASUS are, to be honest, honor bound to fix them, because these are not just small security vulnerabilities where that picture of your cat that you took last Tuesday might get leaked. This is obviously fairly significant, you may recall, and strike similarities between these and, of course, the rather infamous Spectre and Meltdown security vulnerabilities. Of course, they're not exactly the same, but they definitely remind me of it, and we could do with less security vulnerabilities after all that nonsense. And given how many gaming boards have RGB lighting, this is raising an eyebrow, to say the least. But let's finish up on a more positive note, shall we, as we have some rumours regarding the PlayStation 5. Now, make of this what it's worth, of what you will, I suppose I should say, as we may or may not have a tease for the PlayStation 5 from Sony, an announcement for it at least in 2019, in the holiday theme for this year on the PlayStation Store. And you'll see an image on screen, And you want to pay the closest attention to the S, which, well, looks an awful lot like a 5. Now, it might be nothing, it might just be a small reference, or it could be that they're hinting that we're going to be seeing some sort of announcement for this on 2019, perhaps even holiday 2019, that would make perfect sense, or it's just the font. Could just very well be the font. There's no other S involved in this font to really compare it against, so it's there. Make of it what you will. I would be surprised to not see something, at least rumours, something regarding the PS5 from Sony. Of course, we know they're not at E3 next year, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be announcing something to do with the PS5, even if we don't get a full spec reveal or whatever. Anyway, that is me done for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.